Chapter 11. Determinism is not fatalism. When someone begins to accept that the will is not chosen, that choice is inevitable, and that the degree of freedom varies according to conditions, an almost immediate reaction usually appears, so nothing matters. That reaction is understandable and mistaken. It confuses determinism with fatalism, as if admitting causes meant denying action, effort, and consequence. But these two ideas are not only different, they're almost opposites. Fatalism is the belief that outcomes will happen regardless of what we do. Determinism is the recognition that outcomes happen because we do what we do given certain conditions. Under fatalism, acting or not acting comes to the same thing. Under determinism, acting is precisely what produces effects. This confusion tends to arise because we're used to associating causality with passivity. But that does not match real experience. On the contrary, it is precisely because things have causes that our actions matter. Consider something simple like studying for an exam. No one thinks studying guarantees a perfect result, but everyone knows that not studying makes failure far more likely. Performance does not appear by magic. It is the result of time, attention, preparation, rest, environment, and ability. All these are causes, and acting on them makes a difference. If the world were fatalistic, studying or not studying would yield exactly the same result. But we know it doesn't. Determinism does not say the future is written in the sense of being indifferent to actions. It says the future is built through actions, and that those actions also have causes. There is no rupture in that. There is continuity. This distinction is essential to relieve a silent fear that runs through this whole book. Many readers fear that accepting the inevitability of choices leads to apathy, resignation, or moral indifference. But that would only happen if nothing were connected to anything. And what is being affirmed here is precisely the opposite. Consequences exist because we act. Learning happens because we make mistakes. Transformation occurs because something affected us. If our actions were irrelevant, there would be no possible growth. Determinism does not eliminate effort. It explains it. When someone says, if everything is determined, why try? They're starting from a mistaken idea that try would be an act outside the chain of causes. But trying is also an effect. Effort also arises from conditions. Discipline is also produced. And once produced, it generates new effects. None of this is denied by determinism. All of it is confirmed by it. Fatalism, by contrast, paralyzes. It says nothing can be done because everything has already been decided independently of our actions. That idea strips learning of meaning and turns life into passive waiting. But this view finds support neither in everyday experience nor in causal logic itself. To accept determinism is not to fold your arms. It is to understand why raising your arms works. Here, the discomfort begins to reorganize itself clearly. The reader realizes that inevitability does not destroy the meaning of action. It only destroys the fantasy that we act without cause. What is lost is the illusion. What is gained is intelligibility. When we understand this, something changes in how we look at ourselves. Error stops being an absolute moral failure and becomes a real point of learning. Effort stops being proof of absolute merit and becomes part of a concrete formative process. That change is silent but deep. Determinism is not saying it doesn't matter. It is saying it matters because this is how it works. It is not denying responsibility, but placing it in the right place. Not as a demand for the impossible, but as active participation in the chain of things. In the next chapter, we will take an even more uncomfortable but decisive step. We will return to the idea of going back in time to show, without evasion, that changing a choice requires changing the causes, and that expecting otherwise is asking for the impossible. For now, carry with you this simple distinction. Fatalism says nothing matters. Determinism says everything matters precisely because it has a cause. The crossing continues.